One of the other issues that has come up in front of town officials is about the $2.6 million in unpaid taxes. And officials are talking about a tax sale. What do you think about that?
Well, that's kind of dovetails exactly like with what I used to do because as mentioned, we would buy hundreds of thousands of residential loans, and a lot of them, you can buy distressed assets, but you can buy loans that were good and then they go delinquent or they go into foreclosure or whatnot. So I think that you can, again, and I don't know if they've done this already, but there's companies out there that manage distressed assets, they're called, and you could someone has to look at each property individually, and usually like a mortgage loan servicer would do it, or you have these special companies that spun off that just they service troubled assets. So if someone's delinquent in their taxes, they reach out and like, okay, why are you delinquent? My husband, or my wife or whatever, I lost my job, but I have a new job coming in, like, I have signed a letter of intent or a contract and I'm going to have a new job in, a week or two. Okay, fine. Then let's work on a plan for repayment of the taxes. So that kind of group would go, that would be one bucket of people, the ones that can be cured, right? The delinquency can be cured. Then there might be another one where like the other bucket, like, hey, there's no hope that this delinquency can be cured. Then, I do think that to have a tax sale, I mean, if you can't, if a person owes their taxes and let's say they've owed them for 10 years or something and they can't pay them and they're never going to be able to, then okay, if that person was like 94 years old and their life expectancy, not to be harsh, is like 2 or 3 years, then I'd be like, okay, fine, like just put those in a different bucket over there. But if it's like people that if you don't, yeah, if your taxes are really delinquent and you haven't paid them, then there are legal steps that are taken, and there are companies that do that for a living. And you give them notice, and then then I think you have to give, like, each state has its own regulations and laws around it, but then 30 days later you give a second notice, and then 30 days later you give a third notice. And then you like advertise it in the paper, and then you have a sale or whatever, foreclosure sale or whatever it is. But like, yeah, I think that unpaid taxes should be dealt with. I think it's kind of like if your house has a leaky ceiling and you have wood rot, like you have to take care of it, because if you don't, it just gets worse and worse. And if people have unpaid taxes, then yeah, I think that they should be dealt with. But I think that again, there are companies you hire that do it legally, and you can hire companies too that'll say like, okay, here, we'll look at this portfolio. You give it to them on a line by line basis. They look at it, they come back, okay, we'll reconcile it. We'll give you 70 cents on the dollar. We keep whatever's left. There's lots of creative ways to do that. And I don't think it necessarily means throwing people out on the street, because you can, you go through each one and you divide them up in buckets and you deal with the different buckets accordingly.